My uncle was a big influence on me. Both his sons played. One played at Maryland and one played at Delaware. And then my older cousin that went to Maryland played for the Broncos for a year. So I was kind of always grew up around football. They were older than me, so I looked up to them. Ended up playing at Gaithersburg High School. Had a great time. Awesome teammates. Ended up being All-Med, honorable mention All-American. Got to play in the Big 33. A lot of cool stuff. Went from there to Wake Forest. Played for Jim Caldwell my last 2 years. And coaching-wise, I think he's probably the biggest influence of anybody that I've played for or been around. And then from there, I got into coaching. As soon as I got done with football, you know how it is. You have that itch. You love the game, and you miss being around your teammates. So my uncle talked me into coming back to Gaithersburg and coaching linebackers. I did that for 3 years. Coached some great teams. And then he encouraged me to move on and get a bigger role. So I jumped on the train with Randy Trivers and Doc Fields and took over at Northwest. I was the defensive coordinator. Randy was the head coach, did an incredible job of getting that program established. And then was there for 5 years, ended up coaching with Dave Macarini at Quince Orchard for 5 years. Took a few years off to be, family a little bit more, and then coached at Northwest for 9 years as a head coach. So it's been a fun ride.
He's not telling you the full story, though. Mike is a 2-time state championship coach at Northwest High School. And to be honest with you, yes, he had a bunch of great athletes come through, but you know what? His style of coaching, his development of the kids, it really, at the high school level, it pays to be a teacher because you can influence those kids so much more as a teacher out on the field because they see you every day in the school and you develop that respect with them. And then they go out on the field. They know what to expect from you. If you have your teachers in the building that are out there coaching them, same thing. So Noobs likes to underplay himself. Trust me, I can tell you that from experience. I've been buddies with this guy for 15, 16 years now.
Oh yeah, man, it's been awesome. Let's talk about your coaching career a little bit. Like what?
Well, I mean, I didn't have anywhere near the stellar career you had. I mean, I played in high school. I went to a WPIAL school, Western Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic League, which is, to be quite honest with you, it's a little bit more prestigious, or at least it used to be a little bit more prestigious than even winning a PIAA title, because a lot of the PIAA titles either came from a private school like McDonough up in Erie or one of those private schools out east. There were some other good teams out east, but generally speaking, WPIAL has put out a ton of guys across the country. I could start dropping names of guys that you're like, oh yeah, like that kind of thing. Ty Law, Joe Montana, like all those guys came through the WPIAL. My school, our head coach actually was ahead of the curve. Like he was way ahead of the curve. He was an excellent coach. Dick Dilch was his name. We were doing stuff like summer conditioning and things like that. And the things you do today, the things that are being developed today, we were doing that back in the 80s. And it was really, really neat. He helped me in so many ways to develop me as the person I am. Now, there were times when I was a kid that I wanted to just fucking punch him in the head. But, who doesn't want to do that to their coach? But I just have the utmost respect for him. I went on to IUP and dabbled there for just a little bit and got out of it as a player. Their intention was, and I think it was post George Chomp, or maybe it was the end of Chomp's career. It's George Chomp, who went on and was a head coach for Tampa. But their intention and their big thing was play Penn State in '88. So, I knew that wasn't going to happen for me. They were bringing in guys who were bigger than me, but just as strong as me. And you want a bigger body, and I got it. Always had the passion for coaching. Coached 1,000 different sports, to be honest with you. Anything from YMCA girls basketball to actually ice hockey. Just been very passionate about sports all my life. And it's hard to break into the coaching ranks back in Western PA. Number one, I knew I wasn't going to actually stay there to teach because it's hard to get a teaching job there. A lot of lot of nepotism and things like that. They pushed the people through like that. So it was really difficult. The money was great. You live in this, if you made what you make in Montgomery County in Western Pennsylvania, you could probably buy half a block on a street. Like it's just, I mean, it's that much cheaper to live there. And we make a decent buck, but a decent buck down here, we live in Maryland, you guys. A decent buck down here is just different. So when I came down here, I was an assistant coach at Watkins Mill under Kenny Brace. I worked with Coach Watson, Kevin Watson. Worked with Doug Miller. He played center at Maryland. He was Boomer Esiason center. Worked under him. I learned so much under Doug. It was unbelievable. I worked with Eddie Ashwell. God rest his soul. He dropped over dead, and man, that was crazy when that happened. But going back to Miller for just a second, Miller was doing RPOs in 2000. I think I coached with him in 2005 because then I went to Rockville and took the head coaching job. We were doing RPOs then.
Yeah,
like when I hear
he
people,
was a wide open. He was a wide open offense kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to see how people get hyped on RPOs today. When I did it with Miller 18 years ago, and when I went to Rockville, I took his system, put my terminology in, adjusted the techniques and things like that based on the kids that I had there. Because he was a 4A school. I went to Rockville. It was a 2A school. And I adjusted from there. I was there 3 years. I went to Northwest for 1 year. That was a train wreck, as you like to say, the perfect storm. And since then, I've kind of dabbled in it as a mentor, helped you out 1 year, went to Watkins Mill, was the OC there for a couple of years. I just got myself back into it, Noobs. You know that. Still mentoring those kids at Northwest. Just got myself back into it where my son's going to go to school. And they got a very young coach. Reminds me a lot of myself and you, how energetic you are when you first get into it. And you're like a freaking ADD person. But I love it. He leans on me, asks me a lot of questions, things like that. And it's given me some worthwhile feeling again. Because when you walk away from coaching, man, whoo, there's a huge emptiness, isn't there?
Yeah, big void. It's just like playing. Like when you finish, you have a hard time letting go of the camaraderie and all the work that you put in and everything, and then you get done and you're like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Same with not coaching.
That's what led me to doing the podcasting. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I always enjoyed that. When I actually went to IUP, my plan was to get, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Let me put it to you that way. And I started out as accounting. Could you see me sitting in a cubicle crunching numbers? That's never going to happen, ever. So what I did was I explored getting into sports communication, and the field was closed. I was on a waiting list. And by the time I graduated, I was still on the waiting list. I graduated with a hotel restaurant management degree. And that's when I did all that coaching. I mean, logistically speaking, I've been coaching since I was 18 years old. I coached Little League Baseball with a friend of mine, Denny Rupert. And, I've done it all my life, and I just absorb, and I can probably pull something from everybody I coached with, whether it was good or bad. And I'm sure you can do the same, So it's just something that's in your blood, like you say, and then when you walk away from playing the game, you got that void. Football's one of the only games, though, to me, once you finish playing at a level where, you either played in college or professional or whatever, you can go ahead and play flag football. You can do that stuff till you're 40 something, but then it kind of goes away. Like you cannot get in the trenches or run those your body starts breaking down. Tom Brady's an amazing man in my eyes as a football player. From that perspective, to hold his body together all those years and be able to do that. Now, sports like hockey and baseball, I was at a baseball game with my son, and they have what's called, I forget what the name of the league is, but it was all older guys. You had to be 55 or older to play baseball. So You can still play that game. No, they don't run and steal bases like they did when they were 25, but football, you can't do that. There's no way you and I could put on some pads today and go play in some semi-pro team. Okay.
Nope.
It's just not happening. So
I admire Darryl Green in that respect too, man. He always amazed the heck out of me.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. He was just unbelievable. Those guys just, they blow my mind away.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, too, some of them, so many hits to the head, it's so damaging. But during their careers, they're just unreal. Hey, Noob, how important in your eyes is it for kids to play high school sports, to be involved in it, and especially football, because football brings a total different dynamic, like we say, than any other sport. The camaraderie and things is different.
Yeah. So, I mean, you look at all the benefits of sports. It's if you have it in you, if you're athletic and or somewhat athletic, you don't need to be highly athletic. Just participate. There's kids that play football or play other sports that are just not very athletic, but it doesn't matter. They're just trying and they do the best they can. But the thing it gives you, it grows your confidence so much because you're going to face adversity. And no matter what, there's going to be some type of adversity, and you have to overcome it, and you have to suck it up. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. But if you do, you can look back on that, and you can say, you know what, I made it through that. And you're going to face challenges in life instead of being just one of these kids who just never faces any adversity. Mommy and daddy tell you how great you are the whole time. You go to school and everything's easy. The way it is now, no teachers ever say no. They give you good grades if you just do the work. Everything's easy. So then you get out of college and you're like, well, or even getting to college and you're like, oh, you don't know how to face adversity. You just give up. So I think in that respect, it's great. It gives you something to be really, really proud of when you accomplish things. You work hard. You're part of a team, whether or not you're on the field or not. If you're a backup and you're on scout team, and that's a huge role. Everyone has a role to play. So you have a team of 55 or 60 kids, and you don't see the field a whole lot until your team gets up by a lot late in the game. So what? You're still doing a lot for the team, and you have a lot to be proud of.
And you know what? Those kids, even if they're at the bottom of the totem pole, those kids are so excited to be part of that program. And 10 years down the road, they're going to remember wins and losses and who maybe made some great plays, but they've made some friends that it's, quite honestly, it's different than just having some friends in high school. I mean, you really go out and fight and work hard. I'm watching these kids today. I went to workouts this morning. I'm watching these kids today and how hard they work and, what they want to achieve. And, me, Noobs, I jump right in and I'm talking to kids and I'm finding out stuff about them. I'm trying to learn names. It's all new to me, new county, new kids, all that stuff. And it's the same thing, though.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing. It's like we talk about when we're teaching teenagers are teenagers. Now, they've got some different weapons to use to drive you nuts, but teenagers are teenagers. They're the whole thing that they go through as teenagers, and they just have cell phones today, and that's the biggest impact. But watching these kids participate, they can take their game to a whole different level because of the technology and tools that they have handed to them today.
Yeah. It's impressive. The huddle and all that stuff is so cool, isn't it?
Yeah. I love it. Absolutely love it. Love looking over it. If you're an analytics person, you can really break down what you think is going to happen. And that's coming. I'll tell you the truth. That's coming next. Somebody's going to put out some kind of program that is going to have analytics in it where you just dump a team's tendencies into it. And I know Huddle will give you some stuff like that, but I mean, literally, you're going to be able to dump everything into it, and it's going to tell you what their tendencies are without you even having to have a quality control coach. That's something I can't believe it's not done in the NFL already.
I'm sure it is, don't you think?
To a certain degree, but they always have quality control coaches.
Yeah.
And again, maybe those guys do the analytical part of it and then take it and put the practice plan together. Who knows? Who knows how that happens? So what's the tie-in from youth to high school? Like what's the importance of that? You as a head coach, what did you do to tie? Because you didn't just have one program you were working with at Northwest High School in Germantown, Maryland. You had several different programs that fed kids over to you. How hard was that, and how did you accomplish that?
So I think Germantown's a little different than what you would want. I think the ideal situation would be like an Urbana, Damascus, which are up the road from us, where they have a feeder program. They have one feeder program. They run their system. Their coaches work with the high school coaches. They have similar terminology. I think that would be the ideal setup. Where we are, you have kids that play at 4 or 5 different organizations, and so for me, the big thing was just to be visible as a head coach. Just be visible at those places. Get to a practice, get to a game, meet parents. Of kids that are going to be coming to your school. Make sure that you're trying to you let them know like what your program's about. For us in Montgomery County, I think it comes more down to just being able to keep your kids in your program. Make sure that they're not going to a good counsel or a Bullis, private school. Just trying to keep the kids that live in your school district in your school district. So that was the most important thing for me. It didn't really, the X's and O's stuff, we couldn't do it because there's, like I said, 4 or 5 different feeder programs. They're running all kinds of crazy stuff. Who knows? We just had to, once kids got there, teach them how to play. And a school like Northwest, we probably had a dozen kids that would try out in 9th grade that never played football before. They didn't know how to get in a stance or any of that stuff. So it's not quite the same. Our JV kids probably weren't as well prepared as, a program that's more well established, that has a feeder program that they come right in, and all those kids have been playing together their whole lives. It's not like that at all. So our JV programs probably weren't as good in that respect. But it was a lot more teaching going on and a lot more learning early on. And it made the JV coaches that much more important.
Yeah. And, you got to do a great job with hiring those JV coaches too. I mean, if you don't, at the end of the day, it will come back and haunt you, especially if they have their own agenda from that perspective. At Rockville, what I did, because that was my first head coaching gig, the first thing I did was I went to the Rockville Football League, and I met with the president, Eric Heckman, at the time. And in fact, who was there was the guy from Good Counsel. I don't know why I'm talking about.
Yeah, Stefanelli.
Yeah, Andy. I met Andy there. Andy was coaching a team there. He was coaching, the Rockville Bears, I believe they were called. And I talked to those guys, and we went through all the things that were so important. And, as I did that, I made them understand that there's no way that we're successful at Rockville High School without them. So he put together for me, a feeder team. And I got to choose coaches to go ahead and be part of the organization. I brought them into team meetings and things like that. Another way I built that program was to have essentially off-season meetings with them. I just thought that was so important for that to happen. And I started bringing them in for coaches clinics in the wintertime. And I bring in kids, upper age kids that would actually do the clinic for me. And it just worked out to be so great with them from that perspective. The kids would come into Rockville. They understood what the expectation was. And then to enhance it even more, every summer I'd have a summer camp, $100 is all you paid. We had a snack halfway through. We played 7-on-7 games. We gave out awards for kids who were the best at, kind of like a punt, pass, and kick thing. But that was another way of attracting kids to Rockville. It was pretty funny. I can't think of the kid's last name, but he was a quarterback there probably, 6-7 years ago. His name was Chuck. He came to my youth camp. And their senior year, a bunch of them had been there, but Chuck stood out because he was a quarterback. And I got a text message from the parents that are like, look, it's their senior night, and you have been so instrumental in their lives as football players because they came to your camp for, 2-3 years, whatever it was. We would love to have you show up at their senior night. Well, it didn't work out for me at the time. I think I was coaching with you at the time, but just, that tie-in with the youth like that was just so instrumental for me. I'm watching it happen now over TJ, the program that they had there. It just disappeared. So now the young guy who's the head coach there is working his butt off and trying to get that running again. Yeah, they're taking their lumps, but you know what? At the end of the day, those kids are going to be able to walk into TJ as ninth graders and understand terminology and understand base plays that will help them to be successful as ninth graders.
Nice. So, I was going to ask you how that's going with TJ. Like I know that's pretty tough. That was a rough situation that he walked into. But what steps is he taking to try and get the youth program established there?
So he's got what's called Patriot Parents that not only help, kind of like Jag Nation, kind of like Rockville, the Rams football club that I had at Rockville. For those of you watching this, if you're not from Maryland and you don't understand, we are not allowed essentially to have specific sport. We're not allowed to have specific sport
accounts.
Yeah,
an account at school. It's crazy. So everything goes into a general fund.
And then you've got to hope that, you can pull from that. But if there are a group of parents who are willing to support your program as well as youth programs, they can do a 501(c), I believe it is, and put together a group of parents who do that. So he has worked very hard to get that going for himself. And at this point, he's doing a great job. He just had some meetings about that. They're going to camp. I'm so happy for them. They're going up to Shepherd for that, 4-day, 3-night thing that really brings those kids together. It's just really fun to watch him do all the things that need to be done there, pulling those young kids in. He had a youth camp, and he was kind of like, Coach, I only had like 20 kids there. And I said, you know what? How many kids did you have before that at a camp? He said, we never had a camp. I said, my point exactly.
Yep. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, my point exactly. You're not always going to pull 100 kids into something you want to do on the first time you do it, unless, of course, you're Northwest High School Coach New. But anyway.
That first year was a struggle.
Yeah, it is. It is. You know what? If this guy goes out here and he wins 3, 4, 5 games this year, TJ, it's going to change the dynamics tremendously because he has a very junior-heavy team. Very junior-heavy. Some of his better players are seniors at this point, but they'll be developed, the juniors, the sophomores, and it will change the mentality. He'll get kids that want to go to his camp. He'll get people that want to be involved.
Yep. Hey, Mark, so moving forward, the out-of-season importance. So we're kind of we're in the out-of-season right now. We're not in, in the fall football. What kind of things are you guys doing with the summer, and what have you done in the spring?
So he has gone in the spring. I believe it's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, kind of like Northwest does, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, giving the kids a break Tuesday and Friday, obviously, and then weekends for the most part is on their own. In the summer, he goes Monday to Thursday, and he's allowed now, according to state rules, to do some teaching during a particular window. Can't necessarily bust the football out and do a bunch of teaching, but you can do some teaching. So that's been really important. He separates his workouts into linemen and skill guys, and linemen will be lifting while the skill guys are going through certain things like that. And then he'll flip-flop it after so long. We actually go out and run around on the field and do technique and fundamental on different days, depending on whether it's an offensive or defensive day. So it's been pretty good. This morning from 10 to 10:30, our quarterback, AJ, his mom came out, and she's a yoga instructor, and she did yoga with the kids from 10 to 10:30. And really normally cool. On Fridays, they play in a 7-on-7 type of instructional type thing. But it kind of fell apart last week, and we're working to get that rectified. The unfortunate piece is up here in Frederick County, if you want to use the field, you got to go through like they do in Montgomery County. You got to go through like an ICB, which means that the county is in charge of that field when it's not being used by the school. And he would have to have a third-party group rent that field, because I said maybe we can do something with Northwest. He said we would have to get somebody to rent that field. So I get it.
That's rough. They make it difficult in so many ways. I guess whatever's most convenient for them is what they do, and what makes them the most money. But man, it makes it tough on your program.
They don't understand the bottom line is the kids.
Yeah,
that's where we lose the focus at. You know, that's where we lose the focus at.
So, yeah.
How about you?
Same.
What's going on Northwest?
Same idea. The spring. So, for those of you not familiar with Northwest, I stepped down in 2020 during the pandemic in the fall, the winter that after that non-season in Maryland we didn't play. I was on a lot of committees. It was extremely frustrating to see the adults that said they care about kids and the policies that were put forth, and it really, really aggravated me, rubbed me the wrong way. That and different things that went on, but. So I stepped down. Travis Hawkins, who I coached at Quince Orchard, and he coached with us in 19. He took over as head coach, did a great job for a couple of years, stepped down this past year, and is now at Wise as defense coordinator, and is going to do an amazing job. He's an incredible coach, one of the best position coaches I've ever seen, really, really bright defensive mind. He's going to do an incredible job with their defense. It's going to be kind of scary, actually, what he does with their defense. I think because they're a very talented team. But anyway, so moving in, they are young. Yep, I think. Yeah, I know they have a lot of talent. So the staff that came in, Bucky Clipper, Justin Sakari came over, and some other guys. But anyway, so they're just trying to get. I guess the discipline within the school has been difficult because there are no coaches in the building. So that's been a big emphasis is discipline within the school, because I'm a big advocate. Who you are off the field is who you are on the field. If you're going to be a guy that skips classes, comes late, not paying attention, like that carries over. You are who you are. You can't just change your personality unless you have some kind of, you're a sociopath or something, have issues, but you're not going to be able to just totally change who you are. You are who you are. If you're constantly being late, not following rules, you can't just all of a sudden change that. So we've been trying to get kids to understand that, to kind of buy in, to change that culture a little bit and give them more accountability, I guess is the word, during the school day. And so that's been a big emphasis. The numbers have been great in the weight room. The kids have been working extremely hard. Another thing that's been difficult is recruiting, because there was nobody. I mean, I was in the building for the last few years, but there were no coaches that were actually coaching in the building last year. So the recruiting dropped off quite a bit as far as visits and coaches coming by. So now it has to get re-added to a stop that they used to come by. Like they used to come by, and it was like a place they came. Like we're going to the DeMath, the Good Counsel, I'm going to Quince Orchard, we're going to Northwest. And it used to be a place where they came, and now that had dropped off a little bit. So we're getting that reestablished. Those types of things, it takes work. It's a lot of time and effort.
And with Bucky not in the school, Coach Clipper is the head coach. With him not in the school, that a lot of that you have taken on, a lot of that Corpus has taken on. Mm-hmm. Kevin Corpus, who's in our physical education department, he's doing the defense, right?
Yeah, and honestly, he's done a lot as far as the grades go. And we've assigned guys, like you have a few guys that you look after. Everybody on our staff that's in the building has a few guys that they look after grade-wise. And that helped. We still had some kids that are going to need to go to summer school just to be eligible, and we lost one or two. So it's still a work in progress, but we're making the effort to get there, and we will get there. We'll get there where kids understand this is the expectation. I have to meet it, or I'm not going to be a part of this program. And so it is what it is. You're better for it in the long run.
One of the things that I actually believe is this: you can be a great player, but you don't necessarily. That doesn't translate to you being a great coach.
100%.
To be honest with you, I've known some great guys that were. You've got to be able to separate too, being a coach from being a player. I hear horror stories about guys putting on uniforms that are coaches and going out to the field and practicing with kids to set an example. That's not how you set an example. Okay. It's not, hanging out with the kids post practice and shooting the shit about, whatever you're talking about that's not appropriate. It's not a very good example. And I'm not saying that's what's happening or has happened at Northwest or at TJ. I don't know. Okay. But what I do know is you can't do those things to run a successful program. Okay. Because you lose the respect of the kids. There has to be that line in the sand. They've got to know you're the authority person, you're the coach. They need to respect you. They can have a good relationship. They can love you as the coach or, whatever, but there has to be that line in the sand. In grades, Mike, grades are so crucial. Like you just said, I mean, I worked my ass off with some of those kids that I had in health, and they just didn't get it. There are a couple upper individuals that we have that weren't on my caseload. We'll call it my caseload of kids that I take care of at Northwest that I talk to as well. Cause you know how I am. Yep. And they're like, I got to coach. But I don't know if they got it. Like, I don't know if they understand. Grading is so ridiculous. I'm putting this out there and I don't care who hears this. Okay. I really don't. In our high school, in our county, if you do not complete an assignment and you as the teacher cannot contact and have an agreement with the parent that the child needs to get this work done that they're missing, you have to give them 50% of the grade. So if it's an assignment that's worth 20 points and they don't do it and you don't talk to the parent or have any communication with the parent, you still have to give them 50% of the grade, 10 points. It's insane for kids to not pass or have a 2.0 when that's the case. Kids can go almost an entire quarter of the school year, not do anything, and in the last 2 weeks, dump a bunch of stuff on your lap for you to grade and get their grade up. That's insane to me. Like, I never had that. I don't believe that's, my wife is a college professor. She doesn't yell at me in a hostile way about something I do, but she's like, what are we teaching the kids in Montgomery County? Because we're doing this. It's not fair to them, because then they come to college and they expect the same things. And it's not like that. News, we can't miss work and you call and I don't answer and you still give me 50% of my pay if I'm done with all my sick days. Okay. It doesn't work that way in life.
Nope. No, it's doing the kids a disservice. And I agree with you 100%. It's frustrating knowing that that you're damaging kids, that you're teaching them things that will not help them in life. It's the exact opposite. Like, so if there's going to be challenges in life, then we should do that in high school. Kids should learn at that point, this is what I have to do to be successful. Instead, what we've done is we've lowered the bar. We said, no, I know you're not doing as well as you should, so we'll just lower the bar to make it look like everybody's doing well. And that's doing the kids a disservice. Like, if kids aren't doing well, then change the way you're teaching them, change what we're doing. Get parents more involved, get the community more involved. Like, find ways. There's other things that can be done to help kids. But instead of helping them, we're just making it easier. And that's so wrong. It's absolutely wrong. It drives me crazy. It goes against everything that we stand for in athletics. So why would it be okay in academics?
Most of those guys come through and they look at us and they say, okay, I see he can play football. What's his character like? Oh, he's a pretty good kid. This is what he does. He's involved in this. He plays multiple, and we're going to get to this next, but he plays multiple sports. He's how about his grades? Well, his grades. Let's talk about him. I see here on his transcript, this, and this. And that's where we get to, a lot of these kids go off to college and they've come back to visit me. And I'm not even talking athletes. They'll come back and visit me and they'll be like, oh my God, we are set up for failure here. When we take finals in college, it's a nightmare because we've never done it.
Yep. Yeah.
We've never done that. How the hell? We don't know how to do that. And that was something we had in place.
Yep.
So the kids have got to start getting it at a young age. The grades are so crucial.
They are. And the colleges are starting to figure out that our grading system is so easy that these kids' grades shouldn't be counted the same as other kids around the country. So kids are getting into college at a lower rate from our county now because of this. They're getting smart to it. So it's sad. It's kind of clicked something in my head there when you were talking about it. Dave Mancarini, who, I coached with, friends with, he had a good saying. He said, your athleticism and your skill in football will open the door to college. Your grades will either keep that door open or they'll shut it. It's a good way to think of it.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing they ask for. What do they ask for? Can I see transcript, coach?
Yep. Yeah. It's just, Okay, noobs. I touched on it briefly, just in my conversation there a second ago, or my rant, I should say. But being a well-rounded athlete, how much did you encourage kids, and how much do you continue to encourage kids to play multiple sports?
I think it's very important, very, very important. Let's just talk about it from a basic physical perspective. So when you play a sport like football, say you're a DB, you're going to be performing certain movements, but that's all you're going to do is those certain movements. Like you're going to backpedal, you're going to open your hips a certain way. You're gonna do this. But if you were to play lacrosse, you were going to wrestle. Say you're going to wrestle. I love wrestling. I think wrestling's awesome.
Yeah.
So you get into wrestling. Other than the weight, I don't like the weight loss stuff, but that's all right. Another topic. But like say you're wrestling, you're put in so many different positions. You're using so many different muscle groups. So you're less likely to get injured when you're playing football, when you're put into different situations, because you've moved in a lot of different ways. You're using different muscle groups, different muscle patterns. I love the aspect of doing different sports. You and I both threw shot put and discus. I think that's great for linemen and edge or linebacker guys. I think throwing is amazing for you. I kind of wish I had gotten into running a little bit. I was too slow to be on my track team. Our 4x1 was 42 and lower, so we were loaded.
I could see you doing distance.
No, but we had some 10-5 guys. We had 10-5 Mark Basin. We had I think we had 3 guys under 11 my senior year. But anyway, I think the jumps, the long jump, the triple jump. You talk about our track coach at Northwest, Robert Youngblood, who was a mainstay for a while. He helped out at Seneca this year. But that stuff translates. The thing with track that I love also, you're in a spotlight. When you step into the discus circle, everyone's watching you. That never really happens on the football field. Like, even if you're a quarterback, you have 10 guys around you.
Yeah.
You can lean on people. When you're in the spotlight, you're in the spotlight. Like, everyone's just watching you. It's just you. And so I think that's good for kids mentally as well. It can break kids too, but hopefully it builds you up. It should build your confidence. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was just sitting here as you're talking. I'm thinking about all the sports I played as a kid growing up. I did baseball.
Yep.
I played basketball. I played football. I did track and field. We didn't have soccer and lacrosse. My high school got soccer like 25 years ago. Like it has not been around, and there's still not lacrosse in most of Western Pennsylvania schools, especially a small school that I went to. So everything I could possibly do, I did. I wasn't a swimmer. If you know my body type, you would understand why I'm not a swimmer, but I love to swim.
More of a floater.
I mean, yeah, basically. But I always, anything I could jump into, I jumped into that was offered and gave it a shot. I at least tried it. I tried wrestling. Well, we had 25 guys that were heavyweights. I was never going to get to wrestle a match. So I went back to football workouts, but I never went a season without doing something active. My son, 13 years old, Big Vince, he plays hockey, which basically he could play year round, to be honest with you. And it officially starts the end of August. And when it ends in March, he's already in baseball. He gets about, I want to say about a month and a half off, about 6 weeks off from anything where he will stay physically active. And then the rotation starts again. He's interested in playing football. I don't know. I'm not pushing him. Just because I was a football coach and played football doesn't mean I want to push my kid that way. But I just think it's so crucial, like you said. Those kids who play multiple sports too are good in school. They are focused. They understand the importance of always having grades. And like Dave said, having grades is going to open those doorways up for you. If you always have those grades, you may not be the greatest athlete, but those grades are going to get you somewhere in life. It's such a small percentage of guys who go on to play college, and an even smaller guys and ladies and, whoever, an even smaller percentage that get into the professional ranks. So I'm 100% behind multi-sport guys. Some people push them away from it, and I don't understand it. Why would you not want your basketball player to be ready for basketball season by playing football. Why would you not want your kid who's a football player to not play basketball or play baseball or run track? That was the one thing Travers did. He made all those kids do track when they weren't doing football.
Yep.
Again, I don't like forcing kids to do stuff. I like encouraging them.
Yep, I'm with you 100%. I'll never force a kid to do anything, including my own. But definitely encouraging for sure.
Mike, if I'm playing at a school, and we talked about the recruiting game already, how important it is, but let's talk about this a little bit because it ties in. If I'm at a school that is a perpetual below 500 school, and I'm a strong athlete, I'm a very good athlete, I've always been, do I need to leave that school and go to a more notable program to be recognized?
I don't think so. I think you can go to camps nowadays in the summer. The key is you've got to do well when you go to a camp if you're going to get that offer. I do think you can get away with not going to camps if you play at a more elite school. You play in a WCAC school. I think there's a lot more offers. I think you're more likely to have college coaches come by. Like I said, the checklist, a coach comes in the area, say our county, Montgomery County.
Yeah.
There's 25 high schools, public high schools. And then you start adding the privates. They're definitely going to go to good counsel.
Yeah.
Bullis has Division I athletes, right?
Yeah.
Landon has been doing well. They have Division I athletes.
Yeah.
Georgetown Prep has Division I athletes. So that's
Yep.
Four? What am I? 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, so 29 different places. I probably missed somebody who's gonna be upset with me, but 29 places that they could go, and then they don't have that much time. Like they're gonna have to pick and choose. They're gonna go to the place that has the best athletes or the most athletes. They have the best chance of getting kids to go to their school.
There's also the thing with when you do jump to those schools, you most likely are going there for one sport and not multiple sports.
True. That's true. I've seen kids do both and do well at both, or more than one. I've seen, I think of, kids more, I don't want to name any names, but kids maybe do well in track and in football. But yeah, I agree. The transfer game is tricky. It's kind of sad to see schools that lose their best players all the time. Not kind of sad. It is sad. It's sad. I think what kids are looking for, though, is they're looking for great coaching. They're looking for an opportunity to get to the next level. And I think you can coach that. You can coach a kid to do well in camp. You can coach a kid how to get ready for camp. You can coach a kid how to perform different movements. I think all that stuff is important, and not just like, don't be so narrow-minded as a coach to think, oh, well, I'm just going to coach the sport of football. No, you got to teach the sport of combines. You got to teach how to do all those things. And that was probably one of the things I was probably the most proud of was how well our kids did in front of college coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And that opened doors. Like, AJ Woods going to Pitt, he ran a 4.3, at the Nike, he was like the fastest guy at the Nike camp on the whole East Coast. Like little things like that. Like, and it wasn't me, it was the coaches, like track coach, Coach Youngblood, his trainer, but we all worked together, helping him develop that, helping him develop his leg strength, his flexibility, his core strength, all those things. And then technique, obviously. But those are things that, like, you're not just a football coach, you got to coach the whole thing.
Right.
So there's a lot involved with it. But getting back, I know I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, you're good.
I think if you do well at camps, you can get away with being at a school that's not as good. It's harder because you're not surrounded by as much talent. So you're like, say you're a linebacker, like you're going to have offensive linemen coming off on you that, maybe you wouldn't have if you were at a school that had better defensive linemen. If you're a defensive end, or a 3 technique, you're going to get doubled a lot more than maybe you would if you were at a different school. So I think it's probably more difficult. But if you're a guy like, you're a Division I guy, you're going to jump out. You're going to
Mike,
see that talent.
how many offers did Caden have? Caden Prather, who's a receiver at University of Maryland now.
Maybe over 40.
Yeah. So did Caden need to go to IMG to get those 40 offers?
No, let's say this. He was actually at DeMatha, had 0 offers when he came to us. We worked on, number one, we worked on hands, and then we worked on a lot of other things. But I got that ball machine out. We were throwing balls a lot with him. We worked on the skills, and he ended up earning those offers. That West Virginia offer especially. We took him to West Virginia, went to camp, ran a 4.4, and there must have been a dozen coaches talking to him in the next 2 minutes. It was great.
Sorry, Coach Narduzzi. I worked my ass off to get him up to Pitt. I still text him to make that move. He doesn't want to buy into me, though.
Yeah, he's sat down, man. He's happy. He's at Maryland. He's good.
Yeah, he's right down the road. I'm looking forward to seeing the kid play this year. Supplemental coaching, then, it is important, or thoughts on that? And when I say supplemental coaching, you go out and hire a trainer, you go out and hire, whatever, wide receiver university guy, or, whatever.
It depends on your strengths, I guess, and then what you have on your staff. So, and with doing it within the rules. So we're allowed to, in the off season, work with 2 kids per day as an entire staff. So if you and I are on the same staff, Mark, and you take the quarterback and a receiver, and you work with those 2 guys, that's the only 2 guys that can be worked with that whole day. Like, I can't take 2 other offensive linemen and go work with them. So we're very limited. So I think if you can go to a wide receiver with a Miles Gray, who's one of the best wide receiver guys in the county, if you can get with a guy like that and you can train and do all that stuff, I think it's helpful. It's definitely helpful. Is it necessary? You don't have to have those things, but that comes down to the individual if they want to pay the extra money and get that extra training. I don't think it's necessary, but it is not going to hurt you at all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Miles does a spectacular job with those kids when he gets them in there. I think he works them really hard. He makes them better. He highlights their skill that they have, takes it to another level, and then what they need to develop, he brings that out of them. So I shout out to Miles too. I agree. What's something people should know? Because not everybody knows this. Something they should know before they jump from youth to high school football.
As a player, you think? Are you talking about the player?
The full picture. The full
or coach.
Picture. Yep.
Okay. I think time commitment is going to be greater. I think the mindset, in youth, I think a lot of teams tend to make sure that everyone gets to play and they get to rotate. I don't know if there's a lot of rules on that, correct? Like in youth league where kids have to play a certain amount, which is a good thing. But that doesn't necessarily happen in high school. And the competition is greater, just like every step you take. You go to high school, from high school to college, everybody in college is good. Rasheen was saying that the other day, our buddy Rasheen.
Yeah.
And so the talent, there will be more talent. The expectations will be greater. It's more of a year round, like as we just talked about. A commitment, like the workouts and stuff. You don't do that in youth league. Like you don't get with your youth league team and work out in the winter and do, so that's probably the most important thing. I think understanding that for parents, I think that they may have the hardest time because they're used to just being able to pop off sometimes and say things and then people listen to them. Well, no, I don't care who you are. Don't tell me what I'm doing as a coach. If I'm doing what's best for the kids and what's best for our team. If your kid is not the best player, I can't do anything about that. I'm trying, but the other kid is better and he deserves to play then. It's not fair to the kid who's behind him if he doesn't play, if he's better than him, right? Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it. Parents understanding that, that we're running the show. Like, I'm sorry that, we'll do the best we can. We'll communicate and all that stuff, but if your kid's not the best, he's not going to start.
I'd say if I had one word to describe what they need to know going from youth to high school is expectations. Everything just takes a whole, it rises a whole nother level. Then when you go to college, if you go to college and play, the expectations become even more. You get more supports going from youth to high school. You get even more supports going from high school to college. And obviously, when you go to the pros, the expectation is for you to play your ass off and make a big fat paycheck. But expectations are just so different. And like I'll never forget, I had a parent when I was head coach at Northwest just bitching up a storm, just complaining about the play calling. And it wasn't the play calling, it was the execution. And I can't go out and play for your kids. So I invited him into a Saturday morning session. I handed him a dry erase marker and I said, can you please show me the plays that you would love for me to run? Can you drop the blocking scheme and I'll make some defensive adjustments and tell. That doesn't happen. And I know you've heard that before too. And you probably have even considered if you haven't done it. But, as a parent, support your kid in a positive way. Support the coaches. If you don't like what the coaches are doing, don't bash the coach at home, because you know what? You bash the coach at home, your kid's got to go back and play for him. And how's the kid going to respect somebody that you're calling a piece of crap at home? It makes it really difficult. So the expectations change. You could do that to your youth coach, because I can come out there and coach at the youth level. I can fill out that application and be, whatever. But you can't do that at the high school level. So expectations, I guess would be the big thing. How do we get in touch, or what's the latest on Coach Noob? How do we stay on top of things with you, bud?
I'm probably most active on Twitter, but I'm Coach Noob at Twitter, just as it is here on the screen. And then same on Instagram. I get on there and post some stories every once in a while. I don't do quite as much in there. I get a little more up to date on Instagram. What's your social media thing, Mark?
So for me, basically, it's using the Original Sports Podcast. As you can see across the ticker, our pod page is actually podpage.com/Original Sports Podcast with Mark Maradei. You can reach me at my email, originalsportspodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, join the conversation on Twitter. You can even check out the Snapchats that we put out there at OSP with M&M. And then follow us on Instagram, watch our TikToks, and check out our YouTube stuff, because we do YouTube not only for the Mark Maradei Show, which is a subsidiary of the Original Sports Podcast, but also we do our OSP shows on there. And tomorrow night, for those of you watching right now, we are going to be live at Nemeo Field at Harry Grove Stadium. The Frederick Keys are playing, which is part of the draft league, and we're going to do a live show beforehand. So it's going to be interesting. That live show, Mike, we're going to talk about some of those lists that I send you guys all the time in our group chat, and then we'll get into some baseball stuff with that. Hey, feel free to email us, like I said, at originalsportspodcast@gmail.com. And you can join us weekly on Thursdays. Not sure if it'll be the morning or the evening, but you can join us weeklies on Thursdays to check out the Mark Maradei Show. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
No worries, Mike.